Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Okay. And then you'll change. Like I'll pivot. So I think taking some risks is really important. You don't have to have every fact in place. You need some facts. You need some basis for why you think this might be the right thing to do. And then you do really need to give it a shot. And in my opinion, that type of leap at sort of key junctures is really healthy. And I think people who don't often miss the boat.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Rutledge Perspective Podcast, and I am so excited this week. So for those of you who are actually watching and not just listening, I am actually in person with my guest this week, and she is a dear friend of mine. I'm here in Portland, Oregon at the headquarters of her organization, Vida Design, LLC, and this is my great guest, Rachel Sowieja, who is here with me. And you know what, guys? Y'all know me by now. I have known Rachel for at least 5 years, and this is the first time that I pronounced her last name. Can you believe that? Anyway, I want you guys to meet this amazing woman who has built a firm from nothing to having 70 people, actually 70 plus people now. Rachel is the CEO and founder of Vida Design, LLC, and she has an incredible story that I want you to hear around really being aligned with a vision, taking something that was a pretty tough situation and turning it into this amazing business that she has built today. Rachel, welcome to the Rutledge Perspective.
Thank you so much, Laurel. I'm so happy to be here.
I have been waiting to do this for a while.
Yes.
And I kept telling Rachel, I need you on my podcast. I need you on my podcast. She's like, okay. Okay.
That's on me. Totally on me.
She finally said yes. So I am excited for you guys to hear about her story. So let's start here. Let's talk about Vida today. So tell people a little bit about what Vida does.
Sure. So Vida is an interior design firm. We're located in Portland, Oregon, but we do have a couple of different offices now in San Diego, Denver, Salt Lake City, and Portland. So 73 employees, and again, interior design, but we also do procurement service for our clients, working with mainly REIT developers, so nationwide. Typically development of multifamily, class A, high-rise, mid-rise. And then we also are doing some hotel work and some commercial office. So that's what we're all about.
I love it. I love it. And what I want you guys to hear is, I tell Rachel all the time, she has got an organization of unicorns. So you heard she's a design firm, right? And she does multifamily and all of this kind of thing. But the team that Rachel has put together is this unique combination of designers, so people who have incredible design capability, but also detailed project management. Because your projects are like 5 years long, right?
Yeah, they're typically 3 to 5 years long. And we've got to know how to do all of it, the left brain and the right brain. And the organization and management of the project is in some cases more important than the actual design. It's the delivery and execution on budget.
Yeah. So, on budget.
On time.
On time and on budget. And what I love about what Rachel has done is we've talked a lot, I've been with her through a lot of this growth, and we've talked a lot about how she put these people together. And so let's jump back a little bit and say, how did you start Vida? What was this journey to this now 14 years, right?
Yeah.
Of this organization, which most entrepreneurs last 2 to 3.
Yep.
14 years, y'all. 14 years.
Well, okay. So going way back, maybe a little farther than you want me to, but I'm going to go anyway. I went to UT Austin. I wasn't going towards a design degree initially. I was doing some crazy thing like poli-sci or something. And I was like, this is really dry. Yeah. Then I kind of stumbled back into this creative space where I was really enjoying my design classes, my art classes. And so I decided to go towards that. And then I noticed in college that I really loved the business side of design. So I was trying really early on to try to integrate the creative with sort of this process management, and the financial aspects of design, how to run a business. Yeah. I still feel like there's not enough emphasis on that, quite frankly, anywhere at any program, but we started to kind of dip into it at UT. So then I went on, moved to Portland, started working for architecture firms because I thought, well, I want to work for an architecture firm. That's going to be great. Mm-hmm. Well, it was great. It gave me access to amazing project opportunities. Mm-hmm. But I noticed that the interior design part of the firm or the department was often kind of kept behind closed doors in the back room. Mm-hmm. And, it took me like 2 firms before I realized this may not be a one-off situation. Yeah. This may be kind of a common sort of scenario. Mm-hmm. So I guess it was already kind of brewing in me, like, how do I break through? What is my opportunity to break through and kind of push past these boundaries, honestly? Mm-hmm. There was a lot of male dominance in the corporate structure in most architecture firms. Mm-hmm. Again, there's lots of factors at play. Yeah. But that was just one. Yeah. And I was just really trying to come up with a strategy at a very young age, and I knew I needed some time. So time goes on. I become a leader at an architecture firm as an associate in the interior design department. Yeah. So this was about 7 years in to my career. Yeah. Wow. I had 2 little babies. One was 3. Sorry, one was a newborn. Mm-hmm. And it was 2008. I go back in 2009, sorry. Mm-hmm. And then I go back to work after 4 months of maternity leave, and I was let go, terminated. Actually, it was a really tough time. Yeah. So that's really where Vida, though, came from. I mean, to go back to your original question, it was out of necessity and a little bit of panic. Yeah. It was me realizing that maybe the fears that had held me back and kept me in more of a behind the door position that I could be okay with. Yes. I needed to push all those fears aside. Yes. It was a just go with your instinct, and you're going to do something new, and you're going to do it afraid. Yes. Do it afraid. So Vida came from a very adverse situation. Yeah. So
I love it. And what I love about that is, often having jumped into entrepreneurship, and I count Rachel as someone, for me, guys, who I look to. I mean, again, 14 years in this business and having built this incredible team, which is extremely hard for entrepreneurs to build a good team. And especially for female entrepreneurs, because we get so caught up in just loving on everybody that we bring in, right? It's one of those things, and really helping people think a little bit differently about team and the importance of team, but also that it's a business first. And so, even out of this adversity, Rachel and we won't even talk about having come off maternity leave and getting terminated. We won't. That's a whole different conversation.
We could,
but we won't for this one. That's for another day. But your ability to then say, okay, I can wallow, I can be upset, I can be irritated, and I'm probably all of those things. But I can also do something, right? So what helped you tap into what you said earlier was, when you were at UT, and like, wait, there's got to be kind of this marrying of process and business and the stuff I love to do that's creative. What were you really able to tap into to say, I'm going to do my own firm, as opposed to I'm going to do t-shirts, or I'm going to...
Yeah. Well, definitely when the barriers were removed, I was really surprised at sort of the exhilaration for me that went right alongside the fears. And, that was such a huge learning experience for me. I love that I had to go through that. It was really hard. But I remember just going jogging, and I was like, I can jog as fast as I want, as far as I want. I had so much pent up energy that I didn't really even realize was there. I think I just needed all those barriers removed, to be honest. Yeah. I think that I was always kind of afraid of failure. And when there was no other option for me and my family, I needed to get out there and do my own thing. And it just, all the barriers just dropped for me. Then I just became addicted to the feeling, Yes. Addicted to the freedom, and all the ups and downs that come with it don't even seem that bad when you've been sort of put in a place where you didn't get to flex and spread your wings. So
I love that.
The first 2 years were hard, but I mean, they're also just awesome, you know?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said in that when the barriers were removed, I realized, just how constrained I'd been. And I don't think we recognize that a lot, that we may be in these toxic organizations, but it's what we've been programmed to do, right? You get out of high school, you go to college, you get a degree, you go work for somebody else. I think that may be changing now, right? With the new generations. And
I think so.
after the recessions, but our generation was you go work for somebody. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And unless you had entrepreneurs in your family, of course. And yet, even in really great organizations, sometimes we don't realize what's been put up in front of us.
Yeah. And then what was really cool too was to find so many like-minded people that just almost came out of the woodwork. And then you realize, if you have leadership potential, which I always knew I had.
Yes.
And I tried to stifle it down and stay in the lines. But once you kind of break out, there's people looking for, I don't know, you become almost a magnet for people who are like-minded, who are just really looking for the same kinds of opportunities.
Yeah.
It wasn't really that hard to find a few folks to join me. And those folks are still with me today.
Yes.
I mean, we got in alignment, and we got in alignment really quick. So my partners, most importantly, Sheena probably initially, but then everybody else kind of came on quickly, and we really did have organic growth, and we can talk more about growth later.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit about that alignment piece, because one of the things we always talk about is getting really clear on who you are, right, and where you are, and then having a clear vision of what you want so that you can take empowered action that makes some sense. And so when you talk about having found people who were really aligned, how did you get really clear on who you wanted Vida to be, right? And who you wanted to be in Vida?
I had spent time thinking about it subconsciously in a way. I realized that once I really sat down and kind of put pen to paper, and I would dream about it, I would come up with logos. But to me, like, the logo is just it's a small, it's just a symbol of all the things that are in your head. So then I guess that kind of creative brand making really came out of years and years of sort of collective subconscious understanding in a weird way that just hadn't been allowed to flower and thrive.
Yes.
And part of that's on me. I create barriers for myself. I'm not going to just put it on someone else.
Right.
So anyway, that's kind of how it happened. And then also listening to my clients, quite frankly, like one of the biggest mistakes I think people in my industry make is going at it. I know what I'm doing. I'm a designer. I'm an architect or whatever. The clients have very good information. And I saw all the things from a service perspective that were missing across the various firms I work for. And I was like, well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you all the things that you never were able to find. And then I'm going to just serve it up to you in a really pretty package.
Yes.
So that's been a really great, kind of driver for our success too.
I love that, because, you and I were talking last week, and I said, it's 5 years for me in being an entrepreneur. And just in year 5, at the end of this year, I'm like, finally, right? It's getting really clear. And what was interesting about that is it's really full circle to the very first thing I said. The very first thing I said, right? Working with small women-owned businesses, going in corporations to work with leaders, because I didn't want anyone else to feel like I felt. But we allow ourselves to become our own barrier, right? And to be talked into doing other stuff because everybody else says it's the right thing to do.
I remember that when I first met you. You said, well, here's some things I'm not really wanting to do.
Never.
I'm like, well, okay, we'll see.
And here we are. Yes.
I'm going to make you do it.
Right. Exactly.
No, you did it for yourself.
Yes.
I do remember that conversation. So it's just ironic.
It's the stuff we already know in our guts, but we don't really always allow ourselves to see that or to do that. And so if you think about kind of this evolution of Vida, having come out of this kind of release, this freedom from the boundaries of these firms. And professional services, whether it's architecture or accounting or whatever, I mean, those are just different animals. When you're talking about partnerships and all that, it's just a whole different thing.
Yeah.
When you really think about this evolution that you've had, and even going into, and welcome to the train, y'all. When we think about this revolution that you had, talk to people a little bit about some of the biggest learning that you have had along the way.
Well, one of them was to be okay with being uncomfortable. I know that's often used, but I'll give you kind of the scenario. We got to a point with growth where I was challenged. I think it was mostly me. I was putting pressure on myself. I'm like, okay, we're at 4 people or 5 people. I feel in my gut I need to go up to about 12. And the reason I knew that I could then pull up a little more. And then I knew on some level I could provide the work for these 11 people if I was, put the right levels or layers in place. It was a huge thing for me to grow by 100%.
Yes.
At that time, right?
Yes.
They're small numbers, but it's 100%.
Yes.
And, I looked at the numbers. I got the facts. I had all I had. And then I decided, just do it, right? Yeah. Do it afraid. Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Okay. And then you'll change. Like I'll pivot. So I think taking some risks is really important. You don't have to have every fact in place. You need some facts. You need some basis for why you think this might be the right thing to do. And then you do really need to give it a shot. And in my opinion, that type of leap at sort of key junctures is really healthy. And I think people who don't often miss the boat, miss an opportunity. And honestly, we've done that maybe 3 or 4 times since then. And I've never regretted it. Yeah. Not once.
I will tell you, it's interesting that this is the thing that Rachel would pick is this leap, because one of the biggest things for entrepreneurs is adding team. Yeah. And I will tell you, of all the people that you talk to, there is, you heard her say, I just knew if I, basically doubled my staff, I just knew that's what I needed. I'd be able to pull up. There are so many times that we know, but we won't do. Yeah. And so when you say do it afraid, when you say just take the leap, the other thing I heard you say was, I had the numbers. I had the data.
I had enough data. That's right.
Yeah. And you didn't have every answer to everything. Guys, you can't know everything, right? How do you decide when you have enough to move? And how did you get the confidence to just say, but I also know enough to pivot if I have to?
Well, that's the other learning that I've had, is to keep it organic and be flexible. It's such a big deal. So, this is for me as a parent too, or whatever. But, you can change your mind, especially as the boss. Yeah. You are allowed to pivot as long as you have something to back it up, right? So that was a big lesson for me. Yes. And it was so freeing. I was like, well, who cares? I'm going to take this risk. And if this doesn't work out great, I've got this other plan over here. I'll pivot. Right. So the confidence, though, probably I got a lot of support. Yeah. Those original key people, and then my husband, my parents. I had a lot of people in my corner, so I knew if things fell apart, guess what? I'm still here. I'm still standing. Yes. And I'll figure out a new path. Yes. And as I tell people all the time, do some work on your worst case scenario. Yeah. It's not a bad idea.
Do some work. I know even if everything fell apart tomorrow, I'm going to be able to eat and I'll have a place to live, right? As long as my brother's here, as long as my mom's here, as long as I've got these really great friends of mine who are supportive, I'm not going to be hungry and I'm not going to be homeless.
And that's right. We actually talked about that. Like my husband and I, and my parents actually, they were so much, on my team with me all the way that we said, okay, your new plan is great.
Mm-hmm.
We have a line of credit over here that we can tap into if it doesn't work.
Right.
We were fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
We did get that set in place early, and I do
Yes.
think that's really helpful.
Yes.
You can plan ahead and like get a little safety
Right.
net. That'd be good.
Yes.
And then, you know, my parents were like, Rach, you can come live with us.
Yes.
If all falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
And you know it didn't. So
Yes. Yeah. But that's huge though. So even if you feel like you don't have a safety net, right? You don't have the friends you can move in with or
That's
cousins
right.
or whatever. If you are thinking about entrepreneurship, to do what Rachel said is think ahead, plan a safety net.
Right.
So that gives your brain some freedom.
Yeah, that's right. It is. That's really freeing. You're right. You can kind of just let it blossom and just put that over here for now. You have the plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we can't anticipate everything. Something's going to go wrong. But at least if you've got a plan, you can also decide, is this enough for me to just flex? Or is this enough where I need to completely change?
And you know, when things do go wrong too, Laurel, just to tag on to that, I mean, oh my gosh, I've learned the best lessons with the problems and the mistakes.
Yes.
And I can honestly say, we build upon them every day, these things that we've learned. So welcome, be okay with the mess ups, forgive yourself, look at it objectively, figure out what you're going to learn from, and then just move on.
Well, and I will have to tell you that it has been such an awesome opportunity for me to see you continue to do that, because we were talking earlier. So we're in this amazing extended space that Rachel has now. And at one point, I guess it was 2 years ago, before the pandemic, or right during the middle of the pandemic, she was like, oh, we're looking at different office space and we're going to move, we're doing all this stuff. And then a few months ago, she's like, no, we took over these other places because people moved out. And so when I got here and got to see the spaces, I'm like, wow. And how amazing it was to be able to say, you know what, that didn't make any sense for us to move. Yeah. We can get what we need. Here, we just have to re-envision it.
Pivot. Just pivot.
You know, just re-envision what's possible.
Also, I don't like to apologize too for my pivots.
I love that. Yes. Don't apologize.
I'm not. I won't. I mean, I'm not doing it to hurt anybody. I'm doing it for the best. So I'm happy to explain it, but I'm not going to apologize. I think that's been an interesting thing to accept about myself.
You know, but yes. And you are masterful at that. Because even in being unapologetic, you are not being mean and nasty. Right. And I think that's where sometimes women in leadership roles, especially if you come up in really hardcore industries, it's like we all have feminine and masculine energy, right? Or as it's defined by society. But so often women leaders, especially CEOs, feel like they've got to lead with all this masculine energy. And Rachel leads with such kindness and such empathy, and yet has the strength to just say, no, I made this decision. I made it for a reason. I did the research. I'm also willing to take the risk of the fallout from it. And that's nice, powerful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. No, that's really high praise. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's just, it's an observation that I think, you know, for those of you who are looking at entrepreneurship, or even if you're in an organization and you're leading teams, how do you stand in being unapologetically you? Unapologetically you. And I'm assuming, you know, how much of that, I shouldn't assume, how much of that, being able to be that, have you learned? And how much of that is just inherently Rachel?
I don't even know the percentage, but I definitely think that came out early in my life. There's a little bit of that. You know, I had some great role models too, but part of it's just me, and finally my personality, I was put into a position where I could just, you know, really utilize these gifts or personality traits.
I love that.
Finding that place where you can really show your strengths. So,
or creating it for yourself.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Well, there you go. Yeah. It.
Which she did.
That's right.
Which she did. So we've talked a little bit about kind of those big things that you've learned. If there's someone listening who's like, you know what, this isn't working for me, I need to do something else, what would you tell them to do first?
in terms of making a move and where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably say let yourself dream.
Mm-hmm.
Go off and dream. It doesn't mean you're turning your back on your current scenario
Right.
or you're shutting down on what you have. You're literally just allowing your brain and your body and your soul to explore.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I think that we hold ourselves back from that too.
Mm-hmm.
I know I certainly did.
Yeah.
I had to literally be drop kicked out. Not literally.
Yeah.
Figuratively be drop kicked out of an office to allow myself to dream a little bit. And why the heck didn't I do that beforehand?
Yeah.
So it could start with something like a little self-exploration,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a few podcasts.
Yeah.
And some time.
Yes.
Like a good 3-4 hour block where you're just letting yourself dream and doodle and think about the why behind the feelings you're having.
Mm-hmm.
After that self-exploration, I think then it gets into a little bit of research.
Yeah.
I do think spending time is important though.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in just making a move like that without taking those steps first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's that left side, right side coming out for you too, right?
Yeah.
Is that connecting the experiential piece with the data piece?
Yeah.
Right. What am I really going to do? What plan do I have? What am I going to execute? And how does that look?
Yeah, exactly. And then consulting
Absolutely.
with friends, peers that you trust. And
Mm-hmm.
I found that it doesn't need to be someone in the same field. It can just be someone that maybe has been successful on in any business
Right.
or someone you just trust that knows you.
Yes.
But getting out of your head a little bit is a good idea too.
Yeah. Allowing yourself to just dream.
Dream. You can talk yourself out of so many great things, right?
Yes.
If you don't share them with someone too.
Oh, I love it. And so as we kind of wrap up, because I'm going to have Rachel on the live show now that I've gotten her to the podcast. I'm going to have her come on live, or you guys will get to ask her some questions. So look for that in 2023.
Oh, that'll be fun.
As we wrap up here, and you think about all you've built, 14 years, the team you've put together, the things that you've done, and those 2 amazing girls that you have, what is 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you would give someone that's really kind of stepping into their dream? What is the advice that you would tell them? Hey, in order for you to be whoever it is you want to be, here's the piece of advice that I would give you.
I would, oh my gosh, that's tough. I would say, well, I already said do it afraid.
Yeah.
That's a thing I say often to my kids too. It's okay to sit in a space that's uncomfortable for you and know that you're not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay.
Especially we're talking about this type of thing.
Yes.
This is low risk. Obviously there's, I think do it afraid is a big one. And then, your team, build your team carefully. And once you have them though, the trust is built, give them space to run. I think one thing that's worked for us too, this is kind of coming to me now, is every single person on this team at Vida has sort of this strange underlying passion of wanting to fly and wanting to spread their wings. And they each have their individual paths. So we work so hard to understand what that path is. And even if that path leads them beyond Vida, fine. But just harnessing that spirit with each of the team members and trying to understand that has just really helped all of us kind of work together well and build the culture that you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. I love that because what is that saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. Yeah.
And 14 years of taking the risk of building a team, taking the risk of doubling the staff, taking the risk of finding the amazing skill in other people. Right.
Yeah. I like to teach other people to take those risks too.
Yeah.
On different levels, of course, depending on where they're at, but That's definitely part of the culture.
Yeah. You guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg with Rachel. I mean, there's so much here that is just incredible. And just because I know people's attention spans are so short, that's the only reason we're keeping this kind of short. But I am going to have her back on the live show because I want you to get a chance to really invest your time and invest your knowledge with her, because it's important to feed, ourselves and to learn and develop. And as you have heard from Rachel, and as I can attest to, just your ability to build something amazing, a multi-7-figure business here, 14 years, 73 people, 4 offices. I know. God, 4 offices. So cool. I mean, and awards. We didn't even talk about
you got some awards, guys.
Some awards coming in. I mean, it's incredible what's been, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. And so I just want to thank you, one, for allowing me to be on the journey with you, to see this happen,
Oh, thank you.
And to come on the podcast.
Yes. Laurel, you are such a pro, and you've been with us for 5 years on a lot of the strategic planning and through some really big ups and downs that we've had. And so I really appreciate you too. Thank you for your expertise and your incredible knowledge that you bring.
It is
Everyone loves you at Vida. You're part of the team.
It is family here.
Yeah.
And I'm just so appreciative, and it has been an amazing partnership. I thank you for being on the podcast. We're going to have you on the live show as well.
We're going to have so much fun.
We are. It's going to be a blast. And so for those of you who are investing, there's so many people investing, and you're looking for someone to help you with the design of that investment, of that multifamily, I want you to reach out to Vida, and it's Vida Design, LLC. You will see all of Rachel's bio, her information in the show notes. Reach out to them, follow them, and follow their design aesthetic on Instagram, right? And you're at tell people what the call, do you know what it is?
I can't
Vida
remember.
Design, I think it's PDX.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Vida Design, PDX. That'll be in the show notes too. But follow them and see what they're doing, because the work they're doing is absolutely incredible. So if you're looking for someone to help you, if you know somebody who's looking for somebody, fantastic woman-owned business here that is making moves all around the country. Fellow Texan. I'm just saying.
Right.
She's here in Portland now, but Texan, so we know how to do it big in Texas. So, Rachel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And you guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. So appreciate it. You will catch the next episode next week. But if you have any questions, any suggestions on people to interview, or any questions for Rachel, please hit me up in the DMs and we'll make sure that you get those answered. Take care, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. You have been listening to the Rutledge Perspective Podcast. Thank you so much for downloading and for connecting. You can find previous episodes of the podcast on my website at laurelrutledge.com/podcast. You can also find me on social media at Laurel K. Rutledge and/or the Rutledge Perspective. And I'd love your perspective on the things we talk about. And if there's a specific topic you want me to cover, just let me know. And please share this podcast with someone in your village who may need this little piece of perspective today. And if you're so inclined, I would really appreciate a 5-star rating and review on the platform of your choice. Apple Podcasts and Spotify reviews are particularly helpful. Thank you again for listening. Take care.